When people outside the Philippines first hear about Filipino food, one word often comes up: weird. Dishes like balat, dinuguan, or bagung get singled out, laughed at, or even mocked in food shows and reaction videos. For many foreigners, the cuisine seems unusual, confusing, or just too different from what they're used to. But here's the truth. Those same dishes that get labeled strange are everyday comfort foods for millions of Filipinos, passed down through generations, tied to deep traditions of family and celebration. And here's where it gets interesting. Once people actually taste Filipino food, the reaction almost always changes. What started with hesitation quickly turns into surprise, and then obsession. That first spoonful of adobo, with its perfect balance of savory, sour, and sweet, or that first bite of lechon with its crispy, crackling skin, has turned skeptics into instant fans. Halo, once dismissed as just a pile of random ingredients, often ends up as someone's favorite dessert. It's a reminder that food labeled as weird is often just unfamiliar, and once it becomes familiar, it's irresistible. Filipino food is more than just flavor. It's history on a plate. It's the blend of Malay roots, Spanish influence, Chinese trade, and American touches, all woven into something uniquely Filipino. It's food built for sharing, for laughter around the table, for family and friends. In this video, we'll explore why Filipino food is misunderstood, why it wins people over so quickly, and how it's slowly capturing attention around the globe. By the end, you might just find yourself craving the very dishes you once thought were too weird to try. The myth of weird food. When outsiders talk about Filipino cuisine, one word surfaces again and again: weird. But what does weird really mean? Most of the time, it's not about the food itself. It's about unfamiliarity. Around the world, people are quick to call anything outside their own cultural comfort zone strange. Sushi was once mocked in the US as raw fish. Now, it's a global staple. The same pattern plays out with Filipino dishes. Balat, a fertilized duck egg, often tops the list of shocking foods in travel shows. Dinuguan, a savory pork stew made with pig's blood, gets written off before anyone tastes its rich, tangy flavor. Bagung, a fermented shrimp paste, is dismissed as too strong, until people realize it transforms a simple mango or vegetable dish into something unforgettable. For Filipinos, though, these aren't novelties or shock value meals. They're comfort foods. Balat is eaten on street corners late at night. Dinuguan is served at family gatherings alongside rice. Bagung sits on countless dining tables as a salty, umami-packed condiment. To label them weird strips them of the meaning they hold in Filipino life. The truth is, the word weird reveals more about the outsider than the cuisine itself. It shows a lack of cultural curiosity, a knee-jerk reaction to difference. Every food culture has its own acquired tastes. Blue cheese smells like feet to some. Escargot might sound unappealing until you try it with butter and garlic. In the same way, Filipino cuisine challenges assumptions and expands palates. Once you get past the label, you discover dishes rooted in history, community, and flavor. The flavor profile, a culinary surprise. If there's one thing that shocks people after dismissing Filipino food as weird, it's the flavor. Filipino cooking revolves around 4 core notes: sweet, sour, salty, and umami. Unlike cuisines that focus heavily on just one taste, Filipino food thrives on balance. Take adobo, often called the unofficial national dish. At first glance, it's just meat simmered in vinegar and soy sauce. But one bite reveals a symphony. Savory depth from the soy, tang from the vinegar, garlic richness, and often a hint of sweetness. It's comforting, bold, and addictive all at once. Compare it to something global audiences know, like Japanese teriyaki or American barbecue. Suddenly adobo feels familiar, not foreign. Sinigang, a tamarind-based soup, surprises newcomers with its sourness. Yet paired with vegetables, pork, or shrimp, that tanginess is refreshing, not off-putting. Kare, a peanut-based stew, delivers earthy richness, balanced by bagung on the side. And lechon, the famous roast pig, wins everyone over with crispy skin and juicy meat. No explanation needed. The magic of Filipino cuisine lies in these layered experiences. You're not just tasting one dominant note. You're tasting contrasts working together. That's why skeptics often go from hesitation to delight within a single spoonful. What looks intimidating on the plate often feels like home once it hits the tongue. Street food and challenge dishes. If you want to understand why Filipino food gets labeled weird, head to the streets. Street food is where bold flavors meet bold reputations. Balut is often introduced here, boiled and eaten with a pinch of salt. Isa, grilled chicken or pork intestines, is skewered and charred over open flames. Kwek kwek, deep-fried quail eggs coated in orange batter, are served with spiced vinegar or sweet and sour sauce. To the uninitiated, these foods sound intimidating. But for Filipinos, these snacks are pure nostalgia. They're tied to childhood afternoons spent at street stalls, late-night hangouts with friends, or quick bites between work shifts. They're cheap, filling, and bursting with flavor. More importantly, they carry stories of community, sharing skewers, debating the best sauce, laughing over who can handle balut. Outsiders often approach these dishes with hesitation, sometimes even mockery. Yet once they take the leap, reactions flip. A foreign traveler trying Isa might start cautiously, only to admit it tastes like smoky barbecue. Balut, hyped up as gross in countless videos, frequently ends with tourists asking for another one. These foods aren't designed to shock. They're designed to satisfy. Street food challenges outsiders' perceptions because it forces them out of comfort zones. But it also creates some of the most memorable travel moments. Many viral videos of foreigners in the Philippines feature exactly this. First disbelief, then laughter, then satisfaction. Street food teaches a bigger lesson. What's unusual in one place is beloved in another, and often for good reason. Filipino comfort food. Beyond street stalls and challenge dishes, Filipino food shines brightest in comfort cooking. These are the meals tied to home, family, and resilience. They're not about daring someone to try something exotic. They're about warmth. Take arroz caldo, a rice porridge simmered with chicken, ginger, and garlic. It's the go-to dish when someone is sick, tired, or simply in need of comfort. Lumpia, Filipino spring rolls, are party staples. Crunchy on the outside, savory on the inside, and endlessly shareable. Pancit, a noodle dish, symbolizes long life and is served at birthdays. And halo halo, the famous shaved ice dessert, mixes sweet beans, fruits, jellies, and ice cream into a colorful celebration of variety. These foods are often the gateway for foreigners. They're easier to try, familiar enough to connect with, yet still distinctly Filipino. Stories abound of visitors who fell in love with adobo on their first trip, or who couldn't stop eating halo halo after one spoonful. Viral food bloggers often start with lumpia or pancit, before venturing into balut and dinuguan. Comfort food bridges the gap. It reminds outsiders that Filipino cuisine isn't about shock. It's about care, family, and togetherness. Every dish tells a story: survival through storms, celebrations of milestones, or simple joy in feeding loved ones. These dishes aren't just meals. They're an invitation to sit at the table, to share, to belong. The diaspora effect. Filipino food goes global. One of the biggest reasons Filipino food is finally breaking stereotypes is the diaspora. Millions of Filipinos live abroad, bringing their cuisine with them. And slowly but surely, the world is taking notice. In the U.S., Filipino restaurants and food trucks are popping up in cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Houston. Lumpia, adobo, and sisig are becoming familiar names on menus. In Canada, Filipino bakeries and Jollibee branches draw long lines. In the Middle East, where many Filipinos work, entire neighborhoods have grocery stores and eateries serving Filipino dishes. Even in Europe, Filipino food festivals are introducing locals to lechon, pancit, and halo halo. Jollibee, in particular, has become the unofficial global ambassador of Filipino food. With its sweet-style spaghetti, crispy fried chicken, and halo halo, the chain has captured hearts far beyond the Philippines. For many foreigners, their first taste of Filipino cuisine comes not from a street vendor, but from the Smiling Bee logo. At the same time, second-generation Filipino chefs are rebranding traditional dishes, rebranding them for new audiences. They present sisig as sizzling pork tacos, or elevate halo halo into fine dining desserts. By framing dishes in ways outsiders can relate to, they open doors without erasing authenticity. The diaspora shows that Filipino food isn't weird, it's global. It adapts, travels, and evolves while staying true to its roots. And as more people taste it, The old stereotypes fade away. What once was dismissed is now celebrated. Filipino cuisine is proving that it belongs not just in Manila kitchens, but on the world stage. Why people can't stop eating once they start. Here's the secret no one tells you. Filipino food isn't just tasty, it's addictive. That's because it's designed to be shared. Meals aren't meant for one person sitting quietly with a plate. They're served in big portions, laid out on the table, and eaten together. Take the boodle fight. Banana leaves are spread across the table and piled high with rice, grilled meats, seafood, and vegetables. Everyone eats with their hands, side by side. No hierarchy, no pretension. It's messy, fun, and deeply communal. Then there are fiestas. Whole neighborhoods cooking lechon, pancit, and kakanin, inviting anyone who passes by. Food becomes more than nutrition. It becomes a celebration of belonging. And it's this atmosphere that outsiders quickly fall in love with. At first, they may hesitate over ballot or wrinkle their noses at bagong. But once they join a Filipino table, surrounded by laughter, music, and generosity, the hesitation fades. Food tied to warmth and hospitality becomes irresistible. You don't just taste the adobo. You remember the people who served it, the stories they shared, the joy around the table. This is why people who once mocked Filipino cuisine often become its biggest fans. They go from, "I'll just try a bite," to asking for second helpings. They search for lumpia in their hometowns. They dream about halo halo on hot summer days. In the end, Filipino food doesn't just fill the stomach. It stays in the heart. And once you've had that first bite, it's nearly impossible to stop. Reflection, the bigger lesson about culture. What starts as a food story quickly becomes something bigger. The word weird says less about the cuisine and more about how we view difference. When outsiders laugh at ballot or dismiss bagong as too strong, they're not just reacting to flavors. They're revealing how quick we are to judge what we don't understand. But food, perhaps more than anything else, is a mirror of culture. Filipino cuisine tells a story of resilience and creativity. Colonization, migration, and trade left their marks. Spanish techniques, Chinese noodles, American hot dogs, and Malay spices all found a place on the Filipino table. Instead of resisting these influences, Filipinos adapted them, blended them, and made them their own. That's why dishes like adobo, pancit, and halo halo feel familiar yet unique. They are culinary testaments to adaptability. When someone calls that history weird, they miss the point. But when they taste it, when they sit at a table with Filipinos laughing and sharing, the stereotype begins to crumble. One spoonful of sinigang, one bite of lumpia, one scoop of halo halo, and the so-called weird suddenly feels warm, delicious, and welcoming. The lesson here goes beyond Filipino food. It's about how we approach all cultures. Judgment builds walls. Curiosity builds bridges. When we dismiss what's different, we close ourselves off. But when we stay open, we discover flavors, friendships, and stories we never imagined. So Filipino food teaches us more than how to enjoy good meals. It teaches us respect. It shows that every cuisine, every culture, carries meaning worth appreciating. And that's a lesson the whole world needs. We began this journey with a single word, weird. For years, that's how many outsiders described Filipino food. Too sour, too funky, too confusing. Something to joke about rather than celebrate. But as we've seen, that label doesn't survive the first bite. What starts as hesitation almost always ends in love. And that, in many ways, is the story of Filipino cuisine. Underestimated at first, unforgettable once experienced. Think about it. Food isn't just about taste. It's about connection, memory, and belonging. Filipino dishes are built on this principle. Adobo, with its balance of vinegar, soy, and garlic, isn't just a stew, it's a warm embrace. A dish that every Filipino family claims their own version of. Lumpia isn't just a spring roll. It's the dish that disappears first at any party, passed around with laughter and dipped into sweet, sticky sauce. Halo halo isn't just a dessert. It's joy in a bowl, a kaleidoscope of colors and textures that reflects the diversity of the islands themselves. And here's the deeper truth. These foods aren't just filling stomachs, they're building bridges. Every outsider who takes that first curious bite is also taking part in a bigger story, one where cultures collide and come together. A simple meal becomes an introduction to history, resilience, and creativity. It shows that Filipinos didn't just survive centuries of colonization and influence. They turned them into something uniquely their own, something deliciously theirs. That's why Filipino cuisine deserves to stand alongside the giants. Italian food has its pasta and pizza. Japanese cuisine has its sushi and ramen. Mexican food has its tacos and tamales. Filipino dishes like adobo, sinigang, lechon, and pancit deserve the same respect, not as exotic novelties, but as world-class contributions to global dining. And slowly, the recognition is coming. Jollibee opens new branches across the globe. Halo trends on TikTok during the summer. Food critics from New York to London are finally writing about ube, kare, and sisig. The tide is turning. But here's the part that really matters. Food has the power to do what politics, speeches, or debates often cannot. It changes perceptions at the most human level. Through taste, through warmth, through shared meals. You can argue with someone's ideas, but it's hard to argue with the comfort of a steaming bowl of sinigang on a rainy day, or the joy of breaking crispy lechon skin with friends at a fiesta. In that moment, stereotypes dissolve, and what's left is appreciation. So here's the challenge to you, watching this right now. Step outside your comfort zone. If you've never tried Filipino food, start with one dish. Maybe lumpia, maybe pancit, maybe halo. If you're brave, go for ballot. Discover why it's considered a delicacy, not a dare. And if you've already fallen in love with Filipino cuisine, share your favorite dish in the comments. What was the first Filipino meal you tried? What made you come back for more? Your story might inspire someone else to take that first bite. And beyond the food itself, let this be a reminder of something bigger. The way we approach culture. We can laugh at what we don't understand, or we can learn to taste, to listen, to appreciate. Filipino cuisine teaches us that curiosity always rewards us more than judgment. It shows us that what seems strange at first may be the very thing we end up craving the most. So if this video made you hungry, or at least made you think, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more stories about food and culture from around the world. Because this is only the beginning. If one bite of adobo can change how someone sees a culture, imagine what happens when food builds entire communities abroad. That's the story we'll uncover in the next video. Until then, remember, nothing about Filipino food is weird. It's rich, it's vibrant, it's soulful. And once you taste it, you'll understand why people can't stop coming back for more.